even remember how you got here?
Hey guys, and welcome into the Green Hell review. Going to be a little bit different this one. We're still going to have our 4 categories, conclusion at the end. Gameplay and immersion impact are just going to be a little bit longer, same as the conclusion. The other 2 categories are a bit shorter, and you'll see why, especially when we get to the conclusion. It's just to save double handling. Without further ado though, let's get into gameplay.
You still think you can save me?
Alright, well, we've got some sticks here. Harvest? What happens then? Do we... Okay, that gives us 2 little sticks. In an effort not to tread ground that most other people already have, I'm just going to focus on some of the key standouts inside gameplay for Green Hell, and then talk about some of the general stuff a bit later. And one of the things that I'm stunned is not in more survival-based games similar to Green Hell, like The Forest and similar things. Yes, it appears in some of them, but I'm surprised it's not in far, far more, and I think Green Hell does it quite well, is that there. The ability to take a large stick and just break it in 2. Like, it's such a simple thing, makes so much sense, but it makes such a better gameplay experience. The frustration of having massive sticks just sitting there and be like, just do these ones, and knowing that like that's what you would do, but not being able to do it is so it was very refreshing to have that here. Alright, notebook, stick or plank, and a small stick. So another really good thing is how they've put together optional stuff. It's like, hey look, you've got these things you can create, and reality is you could use multiple things to build it. And so they give you those options. It makes sense, it's flexible, it lets you use what's at hand, which again, integral to survival games especially. Amazing that we don't see more of this. Oh, so as you use stuff as well, you do also level up as well. One of my favorite features in these types of games is skilling things up by doing them. The same way that you would in the real world. Like, if I start to use a bow and arrow more and more and more, I'm going to become more proficient with the bow and arrow. I've always really not been a massive fan of just generic XP, and then you just spend it like a currency. And it's like, I've never fished before, but because I've gone around and killed 100 cannibals, I've got all this XP and I've leveled up fishing, and now I'm a master fisherman. From a gameplay and an immersion perspective, it just never rubs me the right way, and I really enjoy seeing that in a survival game like this. It's paid so much effort and attention to having that real gritty survival experience. I love food.
Yeah, it's here if you want it. Come and get it while it's hot though.
What did you make? Fish?
I got the fish.
I love fish. I just need to get some mud from the river first. This is a weird gameplay thing to harp on to, but it's something I don't think it really needs to be rewarded. All these survival games, most of these survival games, you have water, you have sand, you have mud, you have all these things that civilizations have been using as building materials forever, and you just can't use it. And to have a game like this, like Green Hell, where mud is going to be so prevalent, the ability to get it, build with it, and learn all the things that you could actually create with mud, like the forges, like storage, like constructions, is really good and makes so much sense. I didn't actually really know that you could do it at first. I accidentally picked up mud, which then is going to lead into learning. So what did you just find? What did you just run into? You ran into a cage trap and it had a spider in it, didn't it?
Do you know?
Because I just learnt the recipe for cage trap, and so the way that you learn in this game is really cool from a gameplay perspective. You can encounter stuff that you haven't seen before, and then seeing it being built, seeing it being used, gives you the idea, the inspiration, or the knowledge in order to recreate it yourself. So we saw that with mud a little bit. When you pick up mud, you go, well, hang on, how can I use this mud? It takes it to a bit of an nth degree, because you just magically learn how to make a million mud structures, but most of the other stuff is quite sensible. I see a cage trap, yep, sticks, twine, cage trap. So for the most part, it's a really cool way of learning and developing your different blueprints, again, versus what we've seen in other games similar, where like, oh, I've now become more experienced, I've just magically figured out how to make steel. There's about a bit of that here, but it feels a lot more organic, and it's just a much more pleasant experience. Oh, hold Y. Hold Y. So if you go in your inventory and hold Y, you see how it just moved around, even though that's completely useless?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it maximizes the space in there. Another really niche thing that, again, I just don't know why is not in more games, and not just survival games, just games in general, the auto-sort inventory feature. Like, especially for games like this, there is nothing more frustrating than inventory management. Having just a simple system that allows you to maximize the amount of space of a container, whether it be your bag or a storage box, is huge. It just saves you so much time. We're here to play the game. We're not here to run a spreadsheet. And a lot of these inventory heavy games, you end up data managing your inventory, which is kind of frustrating. So yeah, just such a simple feature with excellent execution. How we doing? We're too tired. We're forced to go to sleep. We passed out. No. What now? Nah, I'm dead. All right. We're gonna finish the game.
These are the most varied and brightly coloured frogs in the world.
Oh. Oh! As you may have guessed from that chapter, only positive things to say about the gameplay itself, but I've still only given it a 69, and the main reason here is basically it didn't push the park outside of a few things that were mentioned here. Otherwise, it was very consistent. Combat is extremely samey, doesn't utilize any of the other things that they could have used from the buildings, such as more interesting traps or more interesting ways to interact with the environment outside of just your basic building. So it was solid, it was strong, everything that they do well, and they do some things even better than others. Really, I've got nothing bad to say about the gameplay, but just because I don't have anything bad to say, doesn't make it amazing. Community was a little bit more generous than I was, pushing it to an 80, giving it a total score in gameplay of about 74.5.
Jake, I need you here. Jake, please answer me.
Mia? What happened?
Day 32.
Mia, speak to me. Mia!
I just walked out with a machete. Bit of a weird one, and this is why it's so short. The graphics and sound of this game are okay. Some of the cutscenes, as you can see, are pretty beautiful. The voice acting is phenomenal. The animal sounds are all realistic. The sounds of the jungle are very well done. But it really just hits the mark. Like, there's nothing that stands out and makes you go, oh, do you remember that vista? Or the first time you heard X, you know? Realistically, once you've sort of spent an hour or two in the game, you've sort of seen and heard all you're going to see. The layout changes, but not really the experience. And it's, again, a bit of a disappointing thing considering how much effort's been put into some of these mechanics and the world that they've tried to build. It leaves you with a bit more of a hollow experience. Like, it doesn't even feel as claustrophobic as you'd expect a jungle to feel. Like, it doesn't even feel Amazonian. It feels more westernized and comfortable than that, which kind of just sucks. Obviously, there's changes depending on areas, but ultimately, it just never really did anything noteworthy. And it sounds harsh, and it's not a criticism. Like I said, everything in this game looks beautiful, sounds good. Like, I've only got good things to say about it, but it just hasn't broken the mold or done anything that makes me turn around and go, wow, do you remember that? A really, really good example of like a wow moment is an even older game than this, BioShock 1.
2 seconds in, not bad, good voice.
When you come down and the first time you see Rapture, that wow moment, you never forget it. You never really get that here in any sort of way. It's just a bit generic. And so, despite it being solid, I've got nothing to really celebrate. And it sort of looks like the community kind of agreed with this sentiment as well. I gave the game a 57 for graphics and sound. It went up and down at a few points, but everything just sort of ended up in the middle. And the community kind of agreed. They gave it a solid 58. 58's good, you know, you're above average. But yeah, I think if they had have tried to build some set piece moments or something with a bit more impact, a bit more memory, I think it would have really, really carried this category for it. Because they didn't do anything wrong. You seeing this
Give
too?
me some box soup!
Woo!
Nah, f that, I'm out.
Hey, what are you doing here?
Hello, friend. Can you see this? Or
Hey,
you can?
wait.
What's happening? Are you doing this? Always good to see you too, man. Have a good one, and we'll see you soon, man. Get some rest.
Butterflies!
So many butterflies.
Come here, you little. Where are your parents? Huh?
Normally we'd separate immersion impact and game specific. I even mentioned it in the intro, but the reality is, in this game, they're just sort of too entwined. What this game is set out to do, its main specific goal, is just so entwined with its immersive approach and the impact of some of these moments that they do have. And so I've just put them all together in the end. And again, this is one of these scenarios where I've pretty much only got really good things to say for the most part, and I'm just sort of going to go through them and we'll have some examples go off in the background. As you can see here, while I was doing the intro to this segment, you would have seen that scorecard come up. Even the trip, I don't know what else to call it, the trip, where you've done the ayahuasca and then you go to uncover the next area is really, really cool. Like the way they've done the visuals, the way that they've built it into the narrative, the way that you experience the story through that is immersive. It's interesting storytelling, it's dynamic, it's specific to the game, the setting, and again, what they've set out to accomplish with this sort of story-based survival game. So I think it's done very, very well there. Apparently... What they've also done quite well is things like the injuries, having to pick leeches off you, having scars and abrasions and damage appear on your body when it occurs, and then treating that directly with the appropriate method. Really, really, really cool touch, extremely immersive, and again, nails the genre. Again, so difficult to separate the two, like immersion and game specific. Like, they are so entwined here. Alright, so now, if I look at my arm, do I see the bandage? I do! Look at my pretty bandage.
Roger that. Over and out.
Serious?
Ah, that makes me so f***ing mad. Never, ever, 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 ever say over and out on a radio. They are conflicting things. Over is I'm done speaking, now you can start speaking because it's, you know, one way. Like, I can't hear when you speak, and you can only hear when I speak. Over means I'm done, I'm ready to listen and receive. The other person speaks, says over. You speak, you say over. When you say out, it means I'm done, I'm turning off, I'm finished, I'm not speaking anymore, I'm done with you, I'm sick of you, you're a dog. Very simple. Not over and out. That you can't do that. It makes no sense. How do I pick up the watch? Your body and the watch. So the watch, how it tracks your stats, and you can check it in game, not only being your compass but also basically your hunger, your water, etc. They go with multiple nutrients, which is another really, really cool touch for the survival heavy sort of approach that they've taken with this game. Really, really love it. The watch aspect with the compass and the map also work together quite well, and again, really puts you there in the world. It's another really good example of a game building its mechanics and its systems into the experience. It doesn't pause the game. You pull out your map, you figure out what your compass location is, you look at the map, you put the two and two together, you navigate from there. Same as you ideally would in the real world. So again, really, really cool example of that immersion, taking it to that next level. I need to go basically east and then keep going east. How'd you go? Are you dead?
We have some technical difficulties.
I see you, Kate. I don't see...
The cannibals are on your left.
Yeah, are they with the people you were talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah, they are not nice people. How many do you spot? I see 4.
there's 4.
Do you have bow arrow?
I don't wanna... Just leave them.
No, they are the enemy. That is a
Of one
vicious war band. I'll kill the one closest to us on the left, you kill the one closest to us on the right, then we'll deal with the other two.
Fine.
No one survives.
Alright, ready?
Engage.
Alright, have fun.
What the
Bye.
Kate! 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 Pretty much the only hard negative that I sort of pulled in for this one, at least in this category, is actually the AI. Not just for the animals, but the tribe as well, especially the tribe. The animals I can kind of get past to a degree, but the tribes, sort of a missed opportunity for me, and if anything, I consider it detrimental. When I look at something like the forest is a really good example of this. The way that you interact with the tribes people throughout your time in the game world sort of evolves and changes as you impact the world around you. At first it might be a scout, they sort of check you out a bit, then they might run away if you get too close. As you continue to build, the attacks get more aggressive, the creatures become more terrifying, and it sort of gives you this impression that the world is a little bit more alive. Whereas I kind of expected a little bit more than that with this setting. We've got this really, really rich setting in terms of the Amazon and the tribes that live there. And apparently, I think I read somewhere that there's multiple tribes, but my gameplay experience, it was one, angry. Groups of between 2 and 4 for the most part, sometimes 5 at a stretch, and they just start running at you and attacking. Something that the forest did quite well is maybe I've killed 3 or 4 of them, the last one might try to run away. If I pull out fire, the other one might find it that very uncomfortable and not want to engage with it as much. You know, the AI felt like it was interacting with you, whereas here, trigger the tribal man, they attack. There is an exception. Right at the start, they did appear to scout our base and then leave. That was kind of it. Other than that, it was if you encounter them, game on. Like, there was no real get to know you period, which would have been really amazing in a game like this. This awkward sort of, hey, like, I've got some food, and you know, you can sort of the same way that you would in the wild. You tease it, are they going to attack? Is he going to attack? And we sort of scout each other out for a bit. We really added to the life of the tribes and the AI and the feeling inside that jungle. But alas, yeah, they just sort of come off as a generic cannibal enemy, and it really could have added to the life or the point of difference between this game and just so many other survival games that are out there on the market already.
King who fights his own battles. Wouldn't that be a sight?
I killed the scorpion.
That's very good, Caitlin. You've done a good job.
Yeah,
You're very, very good, Caitlin.
yeah, I did good.
You did so good, Caitlin.
Yeah, he hurt me and then I killed him.
And then you killed. I know, babe. You did so
Yes.
well. I'm so proud of you. Yeah, in the end, immersion and impact, really, really strong suit of this game. I gave it a 67. The community a little bit harsher at 62, giving it a total of 64.5. It's a little bit disappointing. It could have been a real superstar in its space. They do so much right with how the injuries appear on the body, how you interact with them, how you interact with the environment. Like, there's so much about this game that is so ludicrously immersive. It just sucks that there's so many awkward things that bring you back out again. Overall, well above average, especially for this genre. And if anyone loves surviving, mate, this is the game. I've never played a survival game as immersive as this on that one element, the survival element. So definitely, if that is something that you're into, I don't know how you pass this game up, regardless of that final score. Please keep that in mind.
All the big green leaves. That scorpion came out of nowhere, okay?
You were in a cave!
Yeah, well, how was I supposed to know it's a scorpion's home?
In terms of game specific, I gave it an 80, the community gave it an 83, giving a total of 81.5, and honestly it's well deserved. It hasn't been punished in game specific for some of the things that hurt it in immersion impact and hurt it in the gameplay, which are the two elements that really blew game specific up, because what it sets out to do as a game, it absolutely achieves. In terms of a survival game, in terms of a builder game, honestly, leagues above most of this genre in those two respects. It's just unfortunate that they couldn't pull a few other things to really bolster it in those other two categories that would have made this an absolute monster inside the genre. People talk about this being a hidden game, and I think we'll talk about this in a little bit, some of the things that really hurt it and made it a hidden game instead of the game on everyone's lips in this space, right around the corner.
Plane.
Really? How big is it? Oh my god, any corpses inside? Nope, don't tell me. Is there a flight number? 815? How long ago did it crash? Do you have any idea
Was she
what
actually
happened to it?
alive?
Jake?
I don't know.
Jake,
why isn't she coming
Hang
out
on,
to
hang on,
help
what?
me?
It was shot down.
Sorry.
Look at it.
I was
There's
just
bullet holes.
taking it all in. It looks like it was rather
Some bullet
small.
holes.
Just a few seats, but pretty new.
Like drill markings.
Doesn't seem like it's been here long.
That's bullet holes.
But
Where they had bolts in
yeah,
it.
this wasn't an accident. Okay, here you go.
So this is where we get to the conclusion and trying to pack this all together. Look, this is a solid game and it's absolutely nailed what they've set out to nail, which is the survival aspect. I don't think I've actually played a more immersive survival game in this genre. The way that you interact with the environment, the way you heal yourself, what different creatures are doing and what they do to you, different berries, different mushrooms, how you have to deal with water. All of these different things combine to make an amazing survival experience game. And like I've said before, if that's what you're after, I can't recommend anything else above this. However, when we go into the genre of this survival builder type genre that's been around for quite a while now, unfortunately it's kind of missing something. And I think they've started to realise that too, which is why you can see the trailer I put in the background here. They've done the husbandry to try and add another layer to it, because at the moment, once you master survival, which will take you some time, that's kind of it. Versus in the forest, you've got the caves and the aspect of the story with your son Timmy and the mutants, so the horror vibe to it, which makes it a bit different. Medieval dynasty, building out a city, city management, resources for your villages and stuff like that. Here, that's it. And then I'm sure someone's about to come and go, well, hang on, isn't there a story element? Yeah, there is. It exists, but it's pretty predictable, pretty unengaging. Like, right from the start, we figured out very, very quickly that the girlfriend's quite clearly dead. Then by the second trip, I think it is, they start introducing themes of cancer, which all but confirms it. And you go, yeah, okay, so you've come out for some cancer medicine, it hasn't panned out. And the reality is, if she was alive or dead, wouldn't really matter. I don't think she really fundamentally came into our story in such a way that really gripped us. Yeah, she was this voice on the radio that sort of came across in a Firewatch way, but it didn't really feel like you were building this relationship. It felt more like she was just a soft hand giving you gentle nudges along the story, instead of the way a partner would speak to another. And it just came across a bit unnatural. Maybe that was intended, but I never felt gripped by the story, nor has anyone else that I've really spoken to. These games don't really live or die on their story, but it'd be nice to have an added feature because, like I said, at the moment, once you conquer surviving, for me, that's where the game petered out. There is other aspects, though. Bit of a bonus point, the sanity feature. Nice touch, really, really cool when you're playing by yourself and you want to have that feeling of isolation and starting to lose your mind. Really terribly implemented. Hurts the game. Either get rid of it or tweak it. When you go insane, you are just being yelled at non-stop, the same like 5 voice lines. Sanity's hard to recover unless you're prepared, so you might have to hunt something, create some food, raise your sanity, and oh my lord, does it get grinding after 5 minutes, let alone 40, if you're really stuck out and it's hard to get your sanity back. Something like Amnesia comes to mind. Give it some silence, or even The Forest, a really good example of this done well. Give us the silence when you're like, think back to when you've been in the forest in a cave and it's quiet. You hear the water dripping. Then you hear something scuttle in the distance. You're like, what's that? Like, if they had mastered that approach, I think it would have really been a cool feature. As you go insane, like the forest becomes quieter, you hear different noises occasionally, then yeah, maybe a voice yells at you the same way it does. The same way that you would have these internal dialogue going. But when it's just absolutely non-stop, it's very, very grinding, which is unfortunate. The environments as well surrounding where you start. So there's a gold mine, there's an army camp, there's a drug place. They sort of feel forced, like they sort of look kind of abandoned but not really abandoned, and then you sort of get this weird feeling on timeline because they all look at similar states of disrepair to a degree, except maybe the gold mine, and you're like, well, were people cutting drugs at the same time the army was here? Were you mining gold, when they were doing both? It just sort of feels a bit bizarre. Like, for example, the gold mine looks a little bit more rundown than the others, but I think there needed to be 3 very sort of clear distinctions between the times that those 3 were there, especially in such a confined space that the map is. And then probably making it clear that the drug den was last. I mean, the army might clean that up, I'd suspect. I don't know, it just felt a little bit It was cool to see something new, but it just didn't really feel natural, and it became almost comical. Especially when you're running around like a drug den and there's like bags of drugs everywhere. And you're like, well, you know, I feel like they would have taken some of this with them. The army camp has lots of equipment there, and you're like, I'm very confident that wouldn't have been left. There may be some discussion that I haven't seen that's like, oh, it's the army camp especially is partly in his mind towards the end of the game. But I don't know, you interact with stuff, so my gut feel is that's not the case, and even if it is, I don't know, it just sort of disrupts that immersive element. Well, all up, you can see the scores up there. We ended up with gameplay 74.5, graphics and sound 57.5, immersion and impact 64.5, game specific 81.5. I deliberately changed between 8.5 and a half just to annoy you, because I know there's someone watching this right now that would really tick off. And whoever that person is, know that I love you and take great pleasure in your discomfort. That gave us a total of 69.5. Settle that. It was a good game. It's a solid game, well above average. I think it's really, really good in the genre, and I hope they keep adding to it. The husbandry will help, but I think with some tweaks, Spirits of Amazonia I haven't tried yet, that might have a lot more to offer. I actually think this game has serious potential, and I would be watching it like a hotcake if they did like a hot take sequel, or tried to apply their approach to this genre in a different setting or time period. Would be very exciting to see. I think if we could tweak the story, we could add a little bit more than just surviving as the sort of main grab. What they've done with the immersion is just unreal. Give me that and then plug some extra stuff in there, and you will have an absolute dominator in the industry. I'll be playing it if they release a second one, or if that same company produces something similar, and I would encourage other people to do so as well. I hope you guys enjoyed the review, but now you can go into the Bioshock playlist. It goes all the way through Bioshock into its review as well. Look forward to seeing you there on Twitch